I'd like to welcome to the show the one, the only, Mr. Jack Starr. How you doing, Jack?
I'm doing great, Mike. Happy to be on the show and talking about metal.
That's it. Let's go back a little ways for the people that don't know.
Right.
You were a key figure in the early development of American power metal. Could you describe the music scene that you emerged from and
right? Well,
influenced your sound?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, back then, it was a very different scene than it is now. Obviously, there weren't a lot of bands, there weren't a lot of record companies, and the whole power metal thing didn't really exist too much in America. I mean, my first band, Virgin Steele, we were one of the few that was doing it.
Which is great stuff, by the way.
Oh, thanks, man.
I still have the Virgin Steel stuff.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it felt like we were doing something new. But I mean, there were a couple of other bands, and maybe like Manowar comes to mind,
right?
And Manowar. There weren't that many bands.
Yeah, I mean, Virgin Steel, Manowar, they were all you guys were all on the forefront of power metal, American power metal. I mean, you guys paved the street, so to speak, for that.
Yeah, it was cool, and it was great that we felt like we were doing something different, and it was something that the kids were responding to, and it was a long time ago, so we had that fresh energy. We're gonna kick your ass, and we're gonna do it musically,
right?
Which is kind of what power metal, epic metal is all about,
Yeah, there's still some fantastic epic power metal out there. And I guess a lot of it nowadays is what they call, I guess, theatrical metal.
Mm-hmm.
That's very
like
epic and just totally produced and just amazing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I try to blend some of that on this new album as well. It's kind of a happy mixture of the first solo album, Out of the Darkness, Virgin Steel,
right,
and what's going on in today's world, because you can't be totally oblivious to what's happening
right
around. You're going to hear it, and it's going to have an impact on you, especially if it's good.
Right. So back in the day with Virgin Steel, how did you hook up with Rhett Forrester back then?
Well, what happened is I was offered a solo record deal from Passport Records, and they were a big independent label back then. They had a lot of really good acts, like Wendy O. Williams, who was being produced by Gene Simmons.
Wendy O.
Yeah, they had, they even had Al Stewart with Ear of the Cat.
Yeah.
And I remember when I signed the deal, which was in '84, I got a big kick out of the fact that the bass player of the Rolling Stones was on the label.
Nice.
He had an album on Passport, same year as me. Literally, I think he signed maybe 3 months before I did, and it was called Willie and the Poor Boys. So it was like kind of like bragging rights. I could tell my friends, hey, I'm doing okay. I'm on the label with one of the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, there you go.
That's not bad. And then Leslie West and Rick Derringer, and I think Robin Trower did some stuff on that label, and a lot of people.
Right.
So it was great, and they offered me a deal, which was really cool. And I did not have the intention of leaving Virgin Steel. I just wanted to do Out of the Darkness because I had something to say that was more guitar driven.
Right.
Than Virgin Steel, which was Virgin Steel was kind of like a hybrid. There's a lot of keyboards going on, and I wanted to do something more guitar driven, and that's what I did with Out of the Darkness.
Right. And now it's like, was it 40 years later, you got Out of the Darkness 2 coming?
It's amazing, honestly, if you had told me back then, in the year 2025, you're going to do a follow-up to this album. First of all, I would have been asking, are we going to have flying cars by then?
Yeah,
Like on the Jetsons,
exactly.
Then I would have been like, oh, and I'm alive. Okay, that's good.
Right.
I mean, the whole thing is very amazing, and I'm really happy that the metal scene is still alive to the point where they're welcoming my return. Which
Right.
is, even though I never left, but it's still a return because I'm doing that again. That
Right.
particular little slice.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's go. What got you into playing guitar? I mean, was your family musical background or?
Well, I think, like a lot of people from my generation, I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
Right.
It was a defining moment. I was really young, but I knew it was something that I really dug, playing guitar, the screaming fans, the whole thing,
Right.
and I knew that I liked that, I mean, I remember, I came to America. I was like 10 years old
Right.
because I was born in France, and I remember one of my first memories is how cool Americans were and how they were into music and fast food and cool looking cars. We didn't have any of that in France,
Right.
even though I am American. My father was a serviceman in the Air Force,
Okay.
so I was born. I was actually an American at birth, even though I was born in France.
Right.
But I didn't get acquainted with America. To me, it was all I saw was the soldiers on the base,
Right.
my dad and his buddies. But I knew that there was a lot more to America than the Air Force base.
Right.
that we were stationed.
Something outside of the base.
Oh yeah,
So after Virgin Steel, you went on to do Burning Star,
yes,
and then you got into, and you went. It went through a lot of various lineup changes, also.
oh yeah. It was a big hodgepodge until the year 2000 when I reconnected with my bass player Ned Maloney, and then we started making albums, and we stayed together, and we're still together. Burning Star still exists. There'll be another album, but this is something that I wanted to do, and I needed to find the right pieces to do it, and I definitely want to take this as far as it can go. I want to see,
Right.
and so far, the reviews have been great on it. There's a nice buzz on the album, and
Right. Now, you guys just released a single called Rise Up,
yes,
and I love that song. I think it's actually phenomenal. I mean,
oh,
you have Giles on there from Warlord and Alcatraz,
yeah,
obviously Mr. Jack Starr on guitar, and you have Gene Cooper on bass, Rhino on drums from Manowar, and
yeah,
Eric on guitar also from Warlord.
yes,
And I've seen the video. I push the single all the time, Rise Up, and
oh wow,
it's just every time I hear it, it's like, wow, man, this is just it's got a really great, powerful punch to it that I think has been lost. I think the music scene has gone stale for a bit, but
yeah.
now it's back, and I noticed the rock and metal scene starting to rise.
Yeah, and I think that was part of what that song was about. It was like, hey, let's take back the music scene. Let's get some really, balls to the wall metal again. And we needed a great producer besides, the fact that we had a great singer, a great drummer, a great bass player. And we found one in Germany. We found a guy named Thomas Merkler, and he was able to give it that punch that we needed.
Right.
We wanted, because let's face it, a lot of people we're, we're expecting a lot, because the Out of the Darkness generated a lot of goodwill. It sold a lot of albums, close to 200,000, which is amazing for an independent album.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's been released on, I don't know, like 6 or 7 different record labels. I actually lost count. I could count them up, but a lot. Roadrunner, which is a big label in Europe, released it. Passport released it. Cobra, and it got released on Burnett Records, which is part of CBS in France.
Right.
Got released on King Records in Japan, and they're, I think, connected with JVC. And then some of the songs on Out of the Darkness also made it onto compilations albums.
Right.
So altogether, I mean, it's around 200,000. So what I'm saying is, I had to come out with something good, or in the words of my teenage self, it couldn't suck.
Now, let me ask you this. Have you noticed, as far as the music, doing what I do, I've noticed that the music scene is going back to the old school style, whether it be the style of Led Zeppelin or the style of, the true heavy metal from back in the day. I mean, it's coming back. I mean, it's coming back. I get bands in here all the time sending me stuff, and it's like, wow, this sounds like Zeppelin. This sounds like old school metal. This, I mean, have you noticed that?
Yes, and it's a good thing, because I think for a while there it was just getting too complicated.
Right.
There was just too much going on, and the guitars were getting lost because there was like too many guitar tracks. The vocals were getting lost because there was like a whole choir, and 17 vocal tracks. So it needed to get back to the roots, and that's what we did with this album. And I'll tell you something else that's really funny. The drummer on most of the songs on this album, Rhino,
right,
did not even use a click track. I mean, and that's one of the things that a lot of people say has hurt the spontaneity and the drive that the old records had,
Right.
Because Zeppelin didn't use click tracks. I mean, sometimes the song would start at one tempo, and by the end of the song, it would be slightly faster.
Right.
But you know what? Nobody noticed it really, except recording engineers,
right,
who told me, because I never noticed it, and so it's a different world, back then, and I think we've tapped into that world, which was actually easy for me, because I'm old. I'll drink to that.
You're only as old as you feel.
You got that right, and I actually feel really good. And but what I'm saying, all kidding aside, is that I was there. So just being there makes it a whole lot easier.
Do you think technology has ruined some of the music?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, you hit the nail on the head, and it's getting worse to a great degree. And now AI is going to even put another nail in that coffin.
Right.
But the French have a saying, and I'm French, so I'll give it to you in English. When 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards.
Right.
So when you go 2 steps forward, whether it's in politics or movies or music or whatever, invariably there's going to be a step backwards, because you can't just keep going forward. You have to also go back. So I think we're in the step backwards,
right,
where we're going back and saying, there was some good stuff back then too. The way they recorded, doing the rhythm tracks all together, and not using samplers for the drums. not using all this high tech stuff, you know. So maybe we could try that, and come up with our own, black dog,
Right, right,
like
exactly.
Jimmy Page sitting there with his Les Paul, down, 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 nothing wrong with that.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's, you know, technology has taken over the world. I mean, we can't live without it anymore, but,
I know.
it's gotten into the music scene so bad. And like you were saying with AI,
Oh yeah.
I think it's just going to be another nail in the coffin. But
Yeah, it's something that to be aware of, and I'm not saying that you can't do good stuff with AI because people have, and I know someone who's doing a whole album with AI. This guy Phil Simons, and it's great stuff.
right,
So it can happen, but it should never be a an excuse for not being able to deliver the goods.
right, right,
You can either play well and sing well, or you can't.
right,
But if you can and you use AI, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you have absolutely no talent and you're holed up in your mom's basement, making AI music,
right,
then it's not a good thing.
right, exactly. And, I think this generation will never know what it's like. You know what I mean? Because
Oh,
they
yeah.
have, and I say this in all my interviews, they will never know what it's like to stand at a record store to buy tickets for a show or, anything like that. They will never know that because it's been,
Yeah.
everything's going to technology now.
Oh, yeah. They're not going to line up in the cold and freezing rain to get tickets to Led Zeppelin, or
Exactly.
Ted Nugent or Kiss or whoever.
Right. So, do you have any other upcoming projects or collaborations in the
Well,
work?
I really want to see this out, totally. And I believe that this album will do well. It is already starting to do well. I don't want to be one of these guys that plays in a million bands.
Right.
And I understand though why some people do it, so I'm not putting it down. It's money. There's less money
Right.
in the music business right now than there was. The record companies are not giving out advances.
No.
These festivals need 25 bands or to get a decent sized crowd into the venue.
Right.
Before they didn't need that, And if they did have 20 bands like Woodstock, then they'd have 500,000 people.
Right. Exactly.
So the music business has changed a lot. It's a whole different animal. And as far as, I'm not really looking to do other projects right now.
Okay.
I've got the Jack Starr band going, which I'm really very happy about. We've been making a lot of great albums in the 2000s. And this album with Giles, who's just a phenomenal singer. I mean,
right. I know. It's like when they first sent me Rise Up, I was like, whoa.
Yeah. And,
Awesome.
and that was the hard part for me because I knew that I needed a really strong singer because whoever I was going to get to do this album was invariably going to get compared to Rhett Forrester, who was a monster. Rhett was incredible.
Yes.
And I had a couple of people, some of them actually fairly well known. But when I heard Giles, I heard this combination that he had of he's able to hit high notes, but he's also got that grit that I love, that Red.
Yeah, it's got that raw power.
That's it, man. Yeah. So he delivered on all fronts,
Right.
And that's what I needed to do on this album, and Brave Words Records,
Right.
they kind of unleashed me. They, I was worried that they were going to be micromanaging the album because today I don't know why, but everybody's into micromanaging everybody else.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They basically them, which would be the people at the label and Giles together basically said, give us more of what you gave us in 1984.
Right.
And that's all I needed to hear. When I heard that, it was like, okay, these guys are on the same page.
Right.
They didn't want me to do, what Tommy Lee of Motley Crue did, which is put out a disco album, basically, a high tech. I don't know, what do you even call that music? That solo album that he did, it was, it was just all, it was like electronica.
Right.
And nobody wanted to hear that from Tommy Lee. And I don't think anybody bought the album. You probably don't even know it, or do you?
No, I don't.
There you go.
I didn't even know he did a solo album.
Yeah, he did an album, and it was just that kind of like stuff that you would hear like at a rave concert.
Right.
But people wanted to hear more of Shout at the Devil.
Right.
I would have preferred hearing that, so I think that there's something to be said for, give people what they want.
Right, exactly. I mean, like we talked about before, it's a big resurgence of the old school stuff coming back. I mean,
oh yeah.
And I think it's great because, these kids nowadays, I mean, you guys worked hard back in the 80s to pave the way, and I'm starting to notice a lot of, like I said before, a lot of upcoming bands are going back to that old school style. And the thing right now, let me get your opinion on this, is what's your take on cover bands and tribute bands?
Well, man, I'll tell you, that's a tough question to answer, because on one hand, it's great when they nail it.
Right.
If you have a tribute band and they're doing, I don't know, Houses of the Holy by Led Zeppelin,
right,
and they do it note for note, and they even look like the guys, and they're wearing the same outfits. But it's kind of cool, even though it's bizarre.
Right.
Same thing with these Beatle tribute bands, where one guy tries to look like Paul, the other guy,
right,
they'll get some nerdy looking guy to be Ringo.
Right.
But do I like it? I mean, I kind of do in a way, because it's entertaining.
Right.
And at the end of the day, and I'm talking not as a musician, but more as somebody in the audience.
Right.
At the end of the day, you want to be entertaining.
Right.
And these guys are entertaining. I know people that play in some cover band, tribute bands.
Right.
And I'm telling you, some of them do better than a guy, putting out an album.
Right.
And I'm not talking about myself, because I have this long past. So already you get your foot in the door and people want to hear it and so on. But if you're like a young band, 20 somethings, and you're putting out your first album, you're not going to have that kind of acceptance as the Foreigner tribute show.
Right. Exactly.
Double Vision or whatever they're calling it, or the Zeppelin tribute show, or Journey. I mean, there's about 5 or 6 really good Journey tribute bands that are out there, and those guys are making way more money than some young guy putting out his first album.
Right.
But they don't have that satisfaction of knowing that they did something creative.
Right, exactly.
Because there's also no chance that they're going to hit the jackpot.
Right.
Okay, you put out an album, somebody like yourself starts playing it, and you never know, it could lead to all of a sudden you were selling like 5,000-10,000, all of a sudden you're selling 100,000, and there's a demand and your video goes viral, and so on and so forth. That obviously can't happen when you're doing Separate Ways by Journey.
Right.
Even if you do an incredible version of it,
right,
it ain't going to happen
unless it goes viral.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But it's been You know, I think, you know, I think the original bands need to get back out there and take over the venues again. You know, if you want to throw a couple cover tunes in to your
Right.
set, that's fine. But try to push your originals as much as possible, because the thing is, you know, without people like yourselves, you know, what's the next generation of bands going to be? All cover bands?
You know, yeah, I was wondering about that. I mean, yeah, and how can there be growth
Right.
when a lot of these guys are doing is mimicking? You know, I mean, I think there was a show near my house, and instead of calling it a rock festival, they called it a mock festival.
Yeah, we have one of them here too. It's like
And I was thinking, you
cover
know,
band festival.
and I was thinking, you know, well, maybe I have too much pride or something, but I wouldn't feel good about myself
Right.
pulling up to the festival and then seeing the sign mock festival. First, it's degrading. In fact, the promoters shouldn't even really use that.
Right.
If I were playing in one of these tribute bands, I would put my foot down and say, listen, there's an art to what we're doing. Okay, maybe we're not doing original music,
Right.
but we're not mocking anybody. So anyway, that's that. And I'm going to get angry letters from promoters.
Oh well.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't I have a lot of friends that play in cover bands and tribute bands, and they do a fantastic job at what they do.
Right.
But it's like, okay, we have heard these songs for the past 50 years.
Yes.
60 years. You
I'm
know,
telling
it's like, you know, I know a guy that he does excellent original music, and he ended up in this Black Sabbath tribute band. Now,
Right.
he does a fantastic job, and it's just, I mean, the rest of the band looks like the members. It's
Really?
crazy. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a charm to that. I'm not putting it down because if I walked into a club and I saw somebody really doing it well,
Right.
I'd be into it. I'd be like, yeah, wow, this is cool. I remember seeing Black Sabbath like in 1972
Right.
at a small place, and they were, you know, phenomenal.
Right.
But there was that excitement, you know, and the songs were well crafted.
Oh, yeah.
And Ozzy's a way better singer than people realize.
Oh yeah.
He's a good singer, you know, like Paul Stanley. Paul Stanley's a great singer.
Right.
You know, you don't. People always mention, you know, Steve Perry of Journey, or they mention this guy or that guy, but really, Paul Stanley, Bon Jovi's a great singer.
Right.
You know, and I'm not like the biggest Bon Jovi fan in the world, but I do appreciate, you know, his voice.
Right. Right.
Songs, you know, they got some cool songs, you know.
What's your take? Since we were talking about Black Sabbath, what's your take on the final show?
Yeah, I don't know. That should be pretty wild.
I think that's going to go down in metal history.
Yes.
One of the biggest, if not the top list of metal shows. I mean, that roster is just unbelievable.
And it's a great fitting ending to an incredible career.
Oh yeah.
You know, he's not going out with a whimper. He's going out with a bang, and
Big one.
a big one, yeah. And so I think it's great, you know. And I mean, I've always loved Ozzy. I had the good fortune of playing a festival that Ozzy headlined in Europe, and ran into him in the elevator. He was going down to play some golf, and it was. But you know, I didn't want to bother him. I just nodded to him and say, "Hey, man, great to see you. I'm honored to be on the list." You know. Right. So then he just said, "Oh yeah, when are you guys going on?" So I said, "Well, we're going on early. I don't expect you to be up at 2 in the afternoon, which is early." And they were going on, I think, at like 10 o'clock at night. You know.
Right.
So I'm thinking he's probably going to be recovering from partying the night before.
A little bit.
You know, but it's just great that I've been given this incredible opportunity by Brave Words Records,
Right.
So just get out there and
They're great people over there at Brave Words.
oh, they are, and it really. Now, have you had a chance? I mean, if you don't mind me asking you a question,
Okay.
have you had a chance to check out most of the album, or just?
No, I've heard Rise Up. I haven't checked it all out yet.
Okay.
I've been running a little behind on my
Well,
duties.
Yeah, well, give it when you get a chance, check it out. I mean, there's some really strong cuts. The reason I ask is kind of funny because the first song on the album is called Hands of Doom.
Right.
And I found out later on that there was actually a Black Sabbath song called Hands of Doom.
Right.
Did not know that. Had no idea. So, and then I was asked about it. I did an interview like last week and someone asked me about it. And I said, I had no idea, but great minds think alike.
Right.
So I think, I don't know if they're Ozzy or if it was Tony or whatever. Right. I don't think it's one of their well-known songs, but it's on there.
It's fairly well known, if you're a hardcore Sabbath fan.
Well, yeah, and I didn't know that, which I should have known. But when I was listening to this, because a long time ago, and I got into writing my own songs, so I became less of a listener and a fan, and more of a I got to do stuff. I got to make my own albums. Because sometimes people will say to me, they'll want me to come up and jam with their band,
Right.
And it'll be like, oh, okay, we're going to do Flying High again, okay?
Right.
And they expect that I know it. And in my mind, at the time that came out, I was doing the second Virgin Steele album, Guardians of the Flame.
Right.
But I don't want to say it in a way that makes me come off like, like I'm cocky or anything.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, I don't know it. I don't know Flying High again, Mr. Crowley, yeah, because that got to be so popular that you can't help, if you're a guitar player, you can't help but go, down, down, down.
Right.
I
think a lot of guitar players, after Randy Rhoads, they started out with Crazy Train and Crowley and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, by the same token, I wouldn't expect, somebody to know, I don't know, Guardians of the Flame on the second Virgin Steele album,
right?
Or Rise Up. I know I'm not going to go into a club, but it may happen yet. It may happen if we get in.
I think Rise Up is going to really take off. We keep pushing it here, and I think it's a phenomenal single. First cut off the album. So.
It really is, and the weird story about that is the album really had been done, and somehow I felt we needed one more song.
Right.
We needed something, and I got together. I talked to Giles, and he agreed with me. He said, "Yeah, if you got something really punchy and heavy, that we'll release that first. Just to let people know what they're going to get. And sometimes that's important. You don't want to basically make the audience out there wonder, well, what is this album going to be like? You want them to know.
Got to give
boom,
them a little taste.
Yeah, absolutely. So that said, even though the whole album had been done and mastered, which is the final step, we went back in the studio and we did Rise Up. And sure enough, that's the one that the record company and Giles and everybody connected said, that's got to be the one. That's got to be the first one.
Right.
And I'm hoping that the second one, we have a song called Into the Pit, which is very, very heavy. That one. And then there is the obligatory metal ballad, which we have one of on the album. It's called Velvet Skies. So maybe that could be it. I really don't know. But whatever it is. I'm just glad that they didn't put the metal ballad first, because
Right.
that would have been like the kiss of death. That would have been like, oh, so we don't hear from this guy for 40 years, and now he's totally wimped out on us, you know. No, so
You're keeping it old school. You're keeping it what you know, and and what you enjoy doing. And
so
if you're not having fun, then why are you doing it?
then don't do it, because the money's not that great. So
Right.
if you're not enjoying this, stop now. That's my advice to young guys. When they tell me, "Oh man, I wish I could do what you did, Jack. You got all these albums out, and you've played festivals, you've been endorsed by guitar companies, you've been in magazines, blah blah blah. You must have made tons of money." And I go,
No.
not really. Hate to disappoint you, but it ain't happening. And then they kind of look at me like, "Oh, oh."
All right, Jack. April 25th, the new album comes out. Out of the
Yeah,
Darkness.
Let me hold up a picture if you don't mind. I happen to. Here it is.
There
I don't
it
think,
is.
did you see that? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
That's the album. Yeah, April 25th on Brave Words Records, man.
Right. Let me
And
ask,
go ahead, man.
let me ask you one more question. What do you have any advice for any upcoming guitarists that they look up to you, inspiring guitarists? Any inspiring words for them? Besides
Yeah.
quit.
Hey, I would never say that, because music is a beautiful thing.
What I mean,
But
I guess, is
okay,
guitarists
yeah.
who want to develop their own technique.
Well, I would say honestly, don't limit yourself to just practicing scales, because there's a lot of that. If you go on YouTube, you see a lot of guitar players that go, and they can do that a mile a minute. You see 10-year-old girls from like Thailand or Indonesia going, and so don't limit yourself to scales. Learn a lot of different styles. Don't just learn shred. Don't just learn metal. Get some blues in your playing, because that'll teach you phrasing,
Right.
and that'll teach you just how to make the guitar sing, like a human voice. So I would say get some blues in your playing, listen to some classic rock, and also whenever you hear something, a melody that you like, whether it's on a commercial or in a movie or wherever, try to figure it out. Even though it has nothing to do with rock and roll,
Right.
it could be the theme song from a television show, anything, because that will teach you how to have ear recognition, how to hear notes and be able to play them. And that's really important, because you want to be able to play what's in your mind.
Right.
And that's what made people like Jimi Hendrix great, and Neil Schon or whoever. Whatever they were hearing in their minds, they could play it,
Right.
And that's what, I've been playing about 50 years or so. That's the best thing that you can hope for in guitar playing, is when you hear something, or if you're jamming with people,
Right.
to be able to just come out with it,
Right.
And that comes, I think, from being open to a lot of different music, and practicing, but not practicing the wrong things, not trying to be the fastest gun in the West, because
Right.
there's a lot of those.
Right.
And all guitar players go through that stage, where you want to go, how fast can I go? No, you want to be tasteful,
Right.
and make music, because that's what it's about. So that's my advice. Don't give up, and keep playing, because it's a beautiful thing.
Right. All right, Jack. Hey, thanks a million for taking the time out and coming
Thank
on
you
to
so much.
Metal Shop 101. And
Thank-
we will be looking forward to April 25th for a release of Out of the Darkness 2. And it was great to talk with you.
Thanks, Mike. It was my pleasure, and everybody out there, keep the metal burning.